Hey everyone, welcome back to Those Fake Nerds. I'm your host, Brian. I want to talk a little bit about tech bros getting into the gaming space and why I just don't think this will ever work. So, we've entered an era of time over the last 5 or so years where tech bros and people who maybe don't understand how things work generally try to put their own spin into different spaces. And we first saw it with cryptocurrency, which kind of devolved from the idea that you're going to have a currency that is decentralized from any government to I want to become rich very quickly, and I'm going to basically gamble on these tokens, or rather coins, that, you know, don't have great fundamentals, and that's really all it is a gamble. And then people started to come in and scam. Then we got tons of rug pulls, and ultimately, it didn't work out how they wanted it to or thought that it would. Then we saw NFTs as kind of like a extension of crypto and the blockchain, and very famously, people were like, "This is going to revolutionize gaming. You're going to be able to have a weapon linked to an NFT in one game and transfer it to yourself or anyone else in another game," which didn't really make sense, didn't really work that way. Say nothing of the different art styles and everything that went into various games. But this is, an example of this was Ubisoft created a game with NFTs in it, and it didn't work very well. So this is from The Gamer, and writer Sam Woods writes about Ubisoft's NFT game, and he says, "For a few years now, Ubisoft has been heavily invested in NFTs. The company started chasing the trend in 2021, and by late 2024, it had created and released its first NFT title, Champion Tactics Grimoria Chronicles. The problem was that by October 2024, when the game officially released, much of the NFT fad had passed, so Ubisoft decided to keep it all a little bit quiet. Fast forward to August 2025, it looks like Ubisoft has all but abandoned Grimoria Chronicles for another title in the Champions Tactics world, Champions Tactics Reforged. Problem is that Reforged isn't doing too well either. The death of Champions Tactics Grimoria Chronicles. Ubisoft's blockchain game was released in October with very little fanfare, yet somehow it still contained an item that cost upwards of $60,000. Unsurprisingly, though, with so little buzz and the company missing the NFT boat, Grimoria Chronicles has effectively been abandoned. The game's website, still displays part of the roadmap from this year, is locked, even though the timeframes have passed, and that roadmap doesn't extend past 2025. While there are 580 NFTs still listed on the game's marketplace, ranging from $4.30 to $1,500, there appears to have been little movement in those numbers for a while. The last mint of new champions took place over a year ago. The last time the series' official Twitter account mentioned Grimoire Chronicles was by name was on July 15th, and before that on March 28th. Most of its newer tweets have instead focused on Champions Tactics Reforged and advertised another of its upcoming free-to-play games, Might and the Magic Fates, alongside games like Star Wars Outlaws and Just Dance 2026. Ubisoft has moved on. In May, Ubisoft pivoted from Champions Tactics Grimoire Chronicles to Champions Tactics Reforged. The former still exists. The latter is a free-to-play game on Steam, where much of Ubisoft's energy is focused. It sells itself as a turn-based strategy game, where players can master deep strategy and outsmart rivals in intense duels. However, the game also failed to gain much traction. Though things didn't start off awfully for Reforged, peaking at almost 1,500 players 2 months ago, data from SteamDB shows that at the time of writing, there's currently only a single person playing Reforged. It peaked at 8 over the last 24 hours and hasn't risen higher than 16 in the last 30 days. The game currently sits at mixed reviews on the platform, with players lamenting its pay-to-win, gacha-style mechanics, lack of polish, and slow pace, alongside the fact that it has seemingly skirted Steam's NFT rules. So, Ubisoft was probably the most well-known and legit company that really bought into this, and they kind of fell on their face. So NFTs will not be a big thing within gaming. So, the tech bros, they need to find a new thing to, I guess, get investors excited. And what is the newest thing in the tech sphere? Well, it's AI games, of course. So there's a company that is allowing players to generate games through their just a picture. So Ludo.ai touts that you can create full games just from pictures, which, is very, very dumb. There's a bunch of game makers like this. I think this will potentially be a thing in the sense that I can see somebody who doesn't really understand gaming, but is like a suit, be taken in by tech bros and be like, well, I guess we should invest in the making of games for AI because it'll cost us virtually nothing. But if you've watched any of the videos that feature these AI from pictures, like the game engines don't have any idea what's going on. They can't remember where it was behind you, so you could walk past, turn around, a completely different thing behind you. The games don't work properly. And I think it's important to note that, like, for whatever reason, people who like really, really want AI to be a thing don't really understand or don't necessarily appreciate that artistic endeavors involve thoughts and planning, and you can't just come up with an idea. You have to come up with how to execute it. And a lot of that is handcrafting something. And quite frankly, they want to skip that part. And so I don't think AI will ever be able to make video games. AI can only recreate things that it's been trained on, right? So, like, if it hasn't been trained on something new, then you can't make anything new. Obviously, it can't be trained on something new that it can create because it doesn't exist, so they can't make it itself. So, just another example of tech bros kind of ruining gaming in a way, and not really understanding what works for gaming. So, what are your thoughts on tech bros trying to force their way into video games and how they've kind of failed in this? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.